our reason for meeting. So at OfferZen, we strongly believe that tech events are super important to help create an awesome tech ecosystem. So they help people connect, learn from each other, and actually share useful experiences. So we've been sponsoring many meetups and conferences within the tech space over the past few years in South Africa. And last year, we also started running tech events for the SA Tech community as OfferZen. Due to this, we've become super aware of how COVID-19 and its aftermath are now affecting the tech event space. Very sad. But we do think that it's super important and useful to come together in times of crisis so that we can learn from each other and share experiences that for others that can benefit from this. So that's kind of why we've been chatting to other event organizers within the tech community over the past few weeks. Robert, you've been part of one or two of those chats already, and you've been super valuable. And it's also why we're actually here today, to deep dive into some of the challenges you've encountered in actually moving your conferences online and how you're addressing them. So since these experiences are so valuable, we'd really like to share your learnings with as many people who might find this useful as possible. So we'll be sharing the video and transcription of this discussion afterwards for others to benefit from. But now that we've kind of the technicalities and reminding why we're here, perhaps we can maybe do a little round robin of introductions. So I'll start, but if maybe you can say your name, the conference you're involved with, and your role. And just to make things fun, a mishap or awkward moment that has happened at your conference in the past, just to get you guys thinking a little bit. So I'll go first. My name's Alex Hansen. I'm involved with OfferZen's Merge Conference, and as mentioned, we've run a series of smaller events before that. I'm kind of on the events experience side, and an awkward situation, or a mishap, more say, the day before our Merge Conference in Johannesburg, all of our printing and branding was printed incorrectly. And we had about 40 posters and designs that had to be put up that had to be reprinted. So I think, Cans, that night, I think the day before our conference, we had 2 hours of sleep waiting for the new posters to come. So it was exciting, very stressful. I'm very glad that it's over and we've moved past that. But that's kind of my mishap. Robert, I don't know if you want to go next.
Sure, thank you. So my name's Robert MacLean. I help run DevConf, which is I guess the largest community conference in South Africa for software developers. And mishaps, I mean, I think the one that comes to mind for me as the most stressful and at the same time funny was at our 2019 Johannesburg event. Somebody in the kitchen left something on a bit too long and set off the fire alarm, and we had to evacuate the entire building. So we had 800 people at VodaWorld have to be evacuated out and then stand in the car park in the middle of March summer heat, and then be brought back in and then try to fix the agenda halfway through. So that was fun. I feel like I wish I could have had an actual fire because that would be a bit more interesting. It's so annoying to have just a, oh, well, somebody burned something. I'm so sorry this has ruined your afternoon moment. But got through that, so all good.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's okay. That's another level. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but is it Jos? Did I get it right?
Jos, yeah, you said that correct. Maybe you said a little bit like Joost, but that's fine as well. That's more the Dutch version of Jos, but then it would be Joos usually. And I'm involved within the Frontend Love conferences organizations. We run Frontend Love, Vue.js Amsterdam. We've done NodeConf, AngularNL last year, and we actually stem from a community meetup background. So that's where I was initially involved with, and then evolved into conferences. Mishaps. Last year we had a new colleague of mine joining the MC team. He's really energetic person, so that's really great to have for somebody as an MC on stage, of course. And we had some technical difficulties, but what we didn't discuss with him is that we were sold out. So what we do is to keep everybody seated for as structurally as possible. Like catering wise, you cannot just let anyone get up and get out, but we had some technical difficulties. So his solution was, just get up, grab a cup of coffee, do whatever you feel like. But of course, he didn't realize, like, you cannot just get 1,200 people out of their seat and let them do whatever they want in a conference building, you know. So the whole conference management team wasn't very happy with us at that moment in time, but was all solved eventually. Yeah, so luckily no fire as Robert had, but yeah, this was our little mishap of in total 45 minutes of delay by the end of the day. So yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. Delays in conferences seem to gel quite a bit. Like there's always something that pushes the time out, sadly.
Yeah.
Candice, do you maybe want to intro yourself next?
Yes, hello everybody, I'm Candice. I am the event producer at Organisers. So I take care of speakers and the agenda and the production of the event. So in terms of my awkward moment, this happened last year at our first Merge conference in Cape Town. I had a speaker. I was backstage because we had like such technical difficulties. I was like stressing with the AV guys trying to like fix the screens, and suddenly I got a WhatsApp from one of our speakers who had to be on stage in like 15 minutes, and he was like, yeah, no, I got a stomach bug, I'm not pitching. And I just had this moment where I, like, you know, where your head's gonna explode or you're gonna cry or something, you're just not sure. So I just like put my head down and I like trying not to cry. I like walk out of the room to try and solve the situation. And as I get out the room, this guy is standing there with the biggest smile on his face as if this is the greatest joke in the world. And I was just like, no, this is not okay. Yeah, so that was maybe not a mishap, but a very like awkward, upsetting moment for me as an organizer. But you learn. I think I was way less stressed after that happened though, because I was like, well, what more could go wrong really? Yeah, so that was great. But I think we can just jump into the conversation from here on. I'm going to be just asking a few questions that I have sent to you guys before, but I'd like if you have any comments or questions, please just jump in. Like this isn't like a structured conversation or anything. I'm mainly just here to be useful. Okay, cool. So I think what would be really nice to start with is to kind of get an idea of what your conference plans for 2020 were, looking like before the whole lockdown crisis and coronavirus. Jos. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, Jos, yes.
Don't worry about the name.
No, I want to say it properly. So Jos, would you start us off?
Yeah, of course. We were slightly lucky, if you can call it luck, of course, in this situation, but we were fortunate enough to have our conference in February. And this was before the whole lockdown situation, or before we realized that health issues or safety issues for our attendees weren't feasible anymore. So we were able to organize Frontend Developer Love and FutureJeffs Amsterdam on the 19th, 20th, and the 21st of February. But of course, we had more plans for this year. We also had AngularNL planned and React Live. And of course, those have both been canceled. And right now we're looking into the possibilities to make those online. And actually directly after we moved our meetups straight away online. So I believe 1 week after, 2 weeks after, we started launching weekly meetups online. Yeah.
Okay, and just quickly on that, like the two conferences you said, Angular and React.
Yeah.
How many attendees are you looking or are you expecting for those, or were you expecting?
I think last year for AngularNL we had 300 plus. And for React Live last year we had 890, 880 about. This year I think we would have expected a little bit more from both. But it's always a little bit of speculation, of course. It's always easier said afterwards or when you cannot organize it. But I do believe that this year it was our first editions of both last year, and they were really well received. Feedback was great, so I think we would have done slightly better, or for React Live in that case, I think a lot better this year. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's really interesting. And Rob, I know you have already had your conference, but do you want to tell us like what your initial plans were, and also your attendee numbers, and how you started changing it for the online version?
Absolutely. So our initial plans, this was our 5th year of running the event, so we had been planning to increase it. Cape Town was going to be increased sort of from, I think we had 350 in 2019. We were expecting to do about 600 people in Cape Town this year. And Johannesburg, we were going to be, I think, 800 or something for Joburg. Bigger venues, which always brings in all kinds of new things. We had more tracks in Cape Town, so it was really that progression of it. And the sort of constant trying to find things that are going to be really exciting and different. I think for us, one of the things we put a lot of work into was a magazine. So it's like actually have a physical magazine with interviews with speakers, and the layout of the venues and the agenda, rather than just what we've done in the past, which is just a sort of single page agenda. Have this thing that would be really useful for people to take and with them and be able to carry around and potentially after the event get value from it. And so there's a lot of that sort of planning, a lot of thinking around that. The event's also known for its swag now, so we kind of put a lot of work into making sure we had good swag set up, and getting all of that infrastructure ready for the event at a completely new scale as well.
Awesome. And just to that point, like I know, especially with the magazine you had planned, and how long did it take you to pivot your event from all these physical plans into a virtual space?
So we started sort of high level discussions about 3 weeks before lockdown. And it took about 3 weeks of work to get the bulk of it done. But it was manic stations. I've never worked so hard, so close to the conference before. Normally there's a sort of natural ebb and flow to a conference, which is for us of like the last 2 weeks before a conference, everything's ready and done and dusted, and it's just small things we have to worry about. And we were working crazy hours right up till the end. And so it was lots of things. I mean, we got very lucky that one of our early decisions was to identify that people might not feel safe. So even before lockdown, before people couldn't gather, we realized people might not be safe, and we made the decision to live stream the event. Or we were going to live stream our Johannesburg event. And so we were able to engage with a company that specializes in doing live streaming. And then I think that was on the Friday, and then on the Sunday it was announced, okay, no events more than 100 people allowed. And we were able to go back to that company and say, look, we're going to have to change this completely. Thankfully, we've paid for you already, so you're still going to be with us on doing this. It's just going to be a bit different now. So we got a bit lucky with that. But yeah, it really came together in about 3 weeks. And a lot of it was just, okay, how do we take this thing we've built and how do we do the online version of it?
Awesome. Yeah, I can imagine the manic panic stations there must have been to like hustle and get everything done. Jos, I'm actually quite interested to find out more about like the way your team is used to working for setting up these sorts of events, more physical events, and how that has had to change now that you are doing way more digital events.
Yeah, I think I agree on a lot of points with Robert as well. Also, that I think you will never be able to compare a in-person event towards towards a virtual event, but it does bring also a lot of new challenges and maybe exciting challenges as where we can come close to this experience for people to still learn and have the feeling they are part of a community. Without being present in an actual venue or office or wherever you usually organize these kind of things. So I think this has been our biggest challenge since. Setting up tech, of course, is important in the beginning, but once it's set up or once you have found a nice structure, it's just about fine tuning, right? Maybe you get some feedback, you adapt some things, you create maybe separate Zoom channels for Q&As, or we've seen a lot of things pass by now, but I think the main thing for us that changed, well, first of all, working completely remote. We have an actual office, so we are used to working in the office every day, basically. Although this type of work and working with developers in general comes with a lot of remote work, so that's not necessarily changing anything. I do think like not having that day-to-day touch with each other, if you're used to that, that can bring some challenges and also some motivational challenges in the beginning. So I think that's what we have to get adapted to, first of all. Second of all, changing the ways we work, yes and no. I think we've actually become more creative, even more creative than before, with organizational.
Sorry, could you give an example?
Yeah, of course. Let me think. We are planning a lot of things, so I need to be a little bit careful of what I release at this stage. But I think we're finding way better solutions to how to handle Q&As. In a big conference center, we skipped a lot of Q&A sessions just because it's simply too many people. So now we're really looking into how can we stream, because now we want to make separate Zoom channels, for instance, or maybe not Zoom, but another digital solution for having actual Q&As. But if you have a few thousand people perhaps watching your stream, this all needs to be organized. So we're actually looking into an upvoting system. They're not new, not at all, but we think this could be really interesting for skipping the least favorite questions. Let's put it like that. And I think this has happened a lot already in real conferences as well. But I think for us, this is something that is becoming interesting at this stage. We're looking into more and more ways to find that personal touch you can have with an audience, which you can usually only have in a real conference, let's say in an after party style, during break sessions. So we're actually making lists and lists and lists of what we want to do, and then we're just going to stripe off what will not be feasible, or feasible not because it's tech wise, or because it's not feasible money wise, or so I think we're really now exploring every aspect of our time, as where before maybe you were exploring every aspect of your space.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like you have limited options, so you have to figure out what those options, like how diverse they can be and how deep, I suppose, how you can use them. That's a very, very interesting point. I'm actually quite interested in that point. You said that feeling of community, like it's really hard to think about that in a physical space, like to force people to network, especially developers, is quite hard sometimes. So have you started or have you found anything that really works for building that like feeling of community and encouraging that sort of friendly engagement with attendees?
To be honest, it has become really, really natural since the first online meetup we have done. Everybody has been very supportive. Everyone has been very active within the live chat we made available. No negative output in these live chats, which you can sometimes see come forward of people that are just stopping by to just say something about it instead of really putting in productive feedback. So to be honest, I would love to say yes, but on the other hand, that's come so natural since we started organizing these that the JavaScript community in this case then has really taken care of it by itself. And we just have been blessed enough to have had a community already by ourselves where we could promote this to, of course. And we've had a lot of support from speakers that were willing to participate in sharing knowledge. And of course, you need a platform, but you also need the people that can actually educate the rest of the community and are willing to step forward and sacrificing spare time to do this, these kind of things.
Definitely. Just to clarify, when you say chat, do you mean like Zoom chat or YouTube chat?
Oh no, sorry, I meant the literal YouTube live chat. When you do like a live stream on YouTube, you have a live chat available. So that's what we have kept available up till now. We wanted to test it. If it was 99% positive or overall positive, let's put it like that. And it has been. So that way we could really keep this an open conversation, even on the live stream, which was nice. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm super curious to ask the same question of you, Rob. Like, how did you guys work to encourage that sort of sense of community and people to engage?
So I think the chat, for us, we ran a Slack at the same time as the event and added everyone to that. And talk about things happening like really last minute. We came up with that idea 2 days before the event. And I know going into this, I very much have been in the opinion like online events can't compete with in-person events. That feeling of community, that feeling of conversation is important. But also people get different things. I personally found when I was starting out, going to sessions was useful because I would learn about things. But now it's the passage conversations where I get more value at events. And having a Slack channel or having a Slack with multiple channels, we had one per track. We had some big ones. People could break off into their own chats. We had some speakers set up their own channels to also talk to people and carry on the conversation after the event. That was amazing. It made it feel so much more alive, and people could talk during the event. They could get feedback straight away. And some of our speakers did sort of pre-recorded videos, and they were answering questions while their video was playing, which was amazing as well. So it really, I think that brought people together. And it seems weird. We often feel like developers are very introverted, but over Slack, it seems to be that introverted. And I looked at the numbers after the event. We had a lot of people on it who never sent a single message. They just sat there and consumed. And that's a great form of engagement as well. They got a lot of extra value out, which I think really helped with bringing some of that feeling to a digital event.
I actually wanted to ask about that because I was exploring Slack as an option for also events, and I know Slack can be noisy and also quite troubling to set up and get people to actually join. Is there any tips that you can recommend to make the use of Slack more streamlined and easy for attendees to join in and also for you guys to manage?
So we set up we set up a special Slack for this. So we have I think it's devconfza.slack.com. So it's a specific one. We set up ahead of the event. We set up specific channels. We had that pinned in and made everyone join into the announcement channel, and we had made everyone join into that and had made that very clear. But I don't think there was anything really specific. I think adding people. I exported everyone's names out of our database and manually added them into the system, and that was how I got them in. And that was, I think that comes down to similar to physical events. Is that sort of, people aren't going to think about the event until maybe the day before, probably in the morning of the event, and then they're going to have to look for the address and put that in their GPS and drive there. Doing this, making sure that instead of sending out an email saying, oh, you can join our Slack here, sending out a thing saying, here's your invite, you just click, helps. Removing those barriers for entries and making it a bit more aware helped. Also making sure it was mentioned in the welcome that the thing existed, people can join it. So that all were big things. But really what actually, I think, as much as it sounds like I want to take some credit for me coming up with the clever idea of having Slack, what I think a big success with it was just how other people jumped in. So a lot of our speakers just jumped in and started helping out. We had a help channel where if you had technical problems or couldn't get something working, and every time I looked in there, somebody else had already answered all the help questions, and people were just sort of being a community and helping each other, which was great.
Yeah, Rob, one of the things I wanted to mention, because we actually attended DevConf online, which was really, really nice and really lucky. And it was actually so cool. It sounded so bad, but I was like wanting to listen to the talks, but the Slack was so interesting and the community just didn't stop. Like they were constantly going on, and even post-event, the conversations were going. I mean, speakers at some points, there were so many questions from the audience that speakers were like, here's a Zoom link, jump on, let's chat about this further. So it was so cool to see how Slack almost enabled even like another dimension of networking to the original conference that maybe you guys hadn't anticipated, which I think was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. It was totally unanticipated. But yeah, definitely. We definitely had people who spun up their own Zoom sessions during the event and pulled people into that. And it became, instead of just sitting and watching and just consuming an event, it was now being part of it, and people could go off and do interesting things that way. So yeah, it was great. My biggest surprise at the event, easily.
It was also quite surprising to me, but I loved it. It was very interesting, new like tech and way of attending an event. I love that you mentioned barriers to entry there, because there are quite a lot, especially considering we're remote now. So I'm not sure, like in South Africa, we definitely have like data and signal problems, which can create a big barrier to entry. Jos, is there any like challenges you're encountering right now with a big barrier to entry for your attendees?
I sure agree with Robert that we are trying to make it as easy as possible for people to jump in straight away and participate on any type of conversation we have going. So that's why we now chose for the live chat, but I love the idea of a separate Slack channel. We also have a separate Discord channel, but it's potatoes, right? It's just whatever your community or whatever the people prefer to use. So I do believe like barriers of entry is that we try to gather everything towards one channel. And we have chosen now to do everything via our YouTube channel. And just to get a little bit more stimulants, we stream it at the same time to our Facebook page. But that's more just to gain some traction over this platform than really a specific choice. But I do believe like, don't make it too difficult. Don't make too many channels when it comes to video. You see that sometimes that a community starts separate channels again to organize something new, and then they are in the hope that this new channel is going to grow again. And I don't know, just keep it simple, just stick to what you have, and everybody's used to it already. You probably already have great traction on the platform you were already using. So don't change your winning concept. When it comes to getting people interacted on the conversation, yeah, I for sure believe like keep it or as easy as possible, maybe as less tooling as possible. I think these are some things we're looking into now, yeah, on how to streamline all toolings under one roof if you want to organize a conference. So that's for sure interesting listening to Robert as well, how they solved this or how they approached this. When you have 1,000 or more people watching live, and how do you streamline then into participating in all the things that happen? So of course, yeah, we are very charmed by the idea of a Slack, or maybe build an interactive web page or things like this. Yeah.
Definitely. And Rob, are there any like barriers to entry that you weren't expecting to have at the conference that you guys ran?
I think, obviously South Africa being where the internet comes to die is always going to have bandwidth issues. And we did see that throughout the day, that people do come in. I know there are people that can't attend because, they don't have enough bandwidth on their cell phone and their mobile device. For us, picking the tech and the solutions we did was very specific to pick things that are pretty much widely supported. So I think browsers. You know, we're one of these people who are going, okay, well, it's got to run on like IE7 that, you know, nobody uses, hopefully, because that's just sort of that requirement. I'm trying to think of a really good example of something with barrier to entry. One of our barriers to entry was IP addresses. So this was obviously when we were planning this, we were worried that some people would still be at work or still in a work environment, and that their companies might block streaming, might block YouTube or things like that. So we actually worked ahead of the event to get all the IP addresses for all the services we were running and put that into a document, send that out to all the attendees so that they could easily go to their IT and go, can you make sure this all works? These are the ports, this are the IPs. It's that sort of kind of boring technical stuff just to try and help there. But beyond that, it was, I think the only other one is just around general accessibility. So, you know, if you have site impairments, things like that, things like Slack are just horrendously hard to use. And I know that our choice of streaming tech wasn't the best, right? We had a web page, it was functional, you could use it, but it really wasn't great. And I think if you are going to be building a platform and you're going to have people on it, and you're going for something custom or something more specific to conferences, that making sure it's really accessible to people with sort of visual or audible issues it needs to be something to be considered. So yeah, like we didn't have closed captioning, for instance, as definitely. So we lost out on people who might have had sound problems there. That's why a big advantage for going for like proven platforms like YouTube is a really good one, because they've really fixed up a lot of that thinking for you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that sharing of information, actually, it proves to be so vital, especially when you're working with a community that is sort of trusting you to take them on this journey with you. And I'm quite curious to know what the impact of not canceling and actually moving digital has had on your community and on your teams. Jos, I don't know if you want to go first, if you have a point on that.
Yeah, sure. Could you give me a little bit of a direction, what you were aiming for? Sorry.
Yes, sorry. So now that you guys have decided to move like those conferences that are later online and also your meetups online, has that had an impact on your community? Have they like expressed gratitude or like been upset or like, yeah, has there been any response?
Yes, well, some of our conferences or like React Live was still far ahead. And for Angular NL, we actually canceled before official measurements were taken because we didn't feel like we could maintain safety for everyone involved at that period of time. And afterwards, it seemed like we indeed couldn't because the government forced us to cancel. But we have reimbursed everyone straight away when we did. So I think that has come with a lot of gratitude from the community, seeing that actually we didn't keep any of their money behind. That's not something that we wanted. We've seen a lot that conferences might choose to move the date. That could be an opportunity, of course, for waiting with the reimbursements. But for us, it was more like better safe than sorry. And right now, it's all still doable. So let's reimburse everybody before things get out of hand as well. So I think on that part, we have really gotten gratitude. Overall, everybody has been very understanding and positive about it, to be honest. Specifically because it has been like government enforced as well now. So like there is nothing else nobody can do about this. And especially when it comes to guaranteeing safety, I think that's something, yeah, priceless, that you need to be very certain of before you do an event for, well, it doesn't matter what size it is, but the bigger the worry, of course, in case something is wrong. And how are you going to guarantee safety for so many people combined in one space? It's just, to us, that's not a risk we're willing to take. So I think we always stood behind that release we made due to that as well. And I think everybody has been very understanding about that.
Yes, I wanted to ask, I know your conferences were later in the year or scheduled for later in the year. Did you have any sponsors lined up? And now that you've had to cancel, how were their reactions to it? Because I mean, obviously they put money into the conference. How did you handle that situation?
Yeah, luckily we have been building an online presence for a long, long time as well. So yes, of course, we indeed had sponsors involved already within the events that would take place in the future, as where they would have the option to be reimbursed. But we also offered another solution where they could have a way longer online presence up till our next event even. And this way maybe even get more, how do you say properly, even more exposure than they would usually get from a normal event. And I think that's something we're really try to communicate. Like usually when you say before, like we have this many followers, we have this many views, it never was that important to a client or to a sponsor, because you would usually say like, oh, I just want a booth and I want to be there and I want to talk to people. As where, of course, that was really important at the time, but right now everything is shifting towards a different direction, where you can really see like, okay, now these kind of little things where you can contribute on other platforms become really important to companies as well. So luckily everybody has been really understanding. We didn't sign anybody off, let's put it like that, due to it. So we have been very grateful to that, and we hope to, of course, keep them with us for the rest of the year. Yeah.
I love that. I'm glad that you managed to come to a solution with them that worked for everybody. I want to actually just direct the same questions, both of those. So like, Rob, how has your response to how to run your event affected your community and your sponsor relationships?
So I think from the community side, we definitely got pushback early on with it. People were, I think the biggest one was people felt very hurt that we weren't sort of refunding everyone or giving people discounts, even though we had switched from a physical to a digital event. A lot of that really came down to managing just how we spoke and how we shared. So my co-organizer, Candice Herodottu, and I we went into extreme transparency. We wrote long emails. We really explained to people, hey, this is what's happening. These are the real constraints. There's a lot of things that we don't have control over, and we still want the event to go ahead, and we can give you 20% back or 30% back, but then the event's not going to happen. So, and I think overall we came out with quite a positive experience with the community. I think the people involved have been very happy, and I mean, we still have work to do there. We still have a large amount. We have like 1,200 swag bags that are sitting, and hoodies and all of that, and we really want to get those out to people. So we're going to be running like a smaller thing now to try and get that done as well. So there's going to be more opportunity to sort of work and build up that relationship again with the community. But I think overall very positive. Sponsors was very interesting. I mean, I think we saw quite a variety across them. A number of them call out like Thinks, Canary, and like AWS, who just went early on like, we can't send our people there, it's too risky from a safety side, while we were still sort of talking about having an in-person event. But we're still going to sponsor, don't worry about the money, we believe in you, we believe in your community, you'll do a great thing. And that was great. I think we only really had one sponsor who came to us with a negative experience, and they came and our contracts with sponsors, we try to be quite understanding. So we had clauses in our contract, like if crazy things happen, you can pull out. And once again, that started off quite rough, I found, having a company come to you and go, okay, we're pulling out and we're not going to pay you anything, and it sucks for you. And then going back to him saying like, look, we've got all of this stuff that's done that's got your name on it already, and all of these parts, how can we help that? What can we do to make this better? How can we find a good middle ground? And just being transparent and talking. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the lesson of, remote first is you might be physically separate, but you've got to spend probably more time communicating and sharing to help there. Ultimately, same to Jos's points, there are a lot of good opportunities in a remote event suddenly. So one of the things we did was we knew we had sort of 10 minutes between talks, which would normally be for a movement break, so you can go from room to room, and we kept the agenda the same. So we decided to run adverts in that time, and I cannot tell you the massive, overwhelming success that was. Not every sponsor took part of it, and I feel very bad for the ones that didn't. But the ones that did have seen such good feedback on that. We got a lot of good feedback from people on the day. And so when moving from physical to digital, it opened up a whole bunch of new opportunities we'd never even thought about. And I think that for our sponsors who took advantage of that they got a lot of benefit out of that, and they were very happy with it.
Yeah, I thought that was a lovely addition. I mean, I've never seen it before, and it was also like really nice to find out more about the sponsors in a really like attention grabbing way, if you will, which is really cool. And I actually want to go back to one of the challenges you mentioned, Jos, in terms of working remotely. I know, like, now that we're very remote, a lot of the people we communicate with for the event, like especially speakers, you do that remotely, so it's not a big difference. But like as an actual team, like I know Alex and I have experienced some like lots of collaboration difficulties, and we've had to adjust. Is there any way, Jos, that your team has adapted to lessen the negative effects of remote working?
So positive outcomes of
Yes.
of remote work? Okay.
While conference organizing, like how do you remotely organize a conference together?
Yeah. To be honest, of course, at first we always had that moment in the office where you could always grab somebody. So actually, maybe from this, let me start with the negative, and then we can move forward to the positive side of things. I think the ability to just walk over to somebody and have a quick 3-minute brainstorm is priceless, because the amount or the increase in the amount of phone calls I'm making nowadays is beyond anything I would ever expected. And that way you sometimes also lose a lot of time, because you're making way more phone calls to clarify everything to everyone. And that sometimes also involves that not everybody's in that chat. And if everybody's in that chat, then the tech is not always working, etc., etc. I think we all have been there. I think the positive outcome is that we have way better documentation. As where before you would sit in a meeting and you would walk out of the meeting and you would think, this is great, this is going to be the most awesome event ever. And then a week later, or even 3 days later, you're like, what did we discuss again for that morning plan? And then nobody remembers. So actually right now, everything is documented or even recorded. So you can hold, first of all, you save all the ideas you had. And second of all, you can hold people more accountable to what was said and to what was agreed, which is a big benefit as well. So I think when everybody is really used to remote work, moving forward, going back to the office, this could be a really great opportunity to keep more structure in our day-to-day job, and even to provide more possibilities to be flexible with working hours, as where maybe before you would stick a little bit more to traditional hours. You can really see the benefits right now of that not being necessary. Of course, it also all depends on how the world moves back to their own offices again, but you for sure see positive outcomes to it. Yeah,
definitely. Like no one knows the world's gonna go back to, and how we're gonna go back, what we're gonna go back to. I suppose it's gonna be very interesting to see how what we've learned now will affect that space and what will change it. And Rob, I'm curious, because I know you and Candice have other full-time jobs other than organizing conferences. Was that a benefit to you guys now that you had to plan stuff sort of remotely?
Yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, both of us have full-time jobs. Candice works for Rad Merchant Bag. I work for Equal Experts. We're also in two different cities. She's in Johannesburg and I'm Cape Town. So we've kind of always been a remote team and planning. So our meetings are always like 7:30 in the morning on a Wednesday or 7:30 on a Tuesday type thing. We kind of get onto a Zoom call and talk then. And do lots of chats. And like to Jos's point, I mean, it made me laugh. It's just how much documentation. I mean, DevConf is entirely run on Excel spreadsheets. We have hundreds of them. But yeah, it really is. I think I can't imagine going from working in an office with somebody and the running events like that, and then being sort of pulled apart, and then having to figure out how to run events as well, get everything ready. That would have been a massive. I think we were really lucky that this was just how we've always worked, and we're able to put it all together.
Definitely. And what you mentioned there is very interesting, the tooling, like you said, Excel sheets. I'm curious to know what strategies, resources, or tools like absolutely saved you in the past few weeks. Rob, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I think like from an organization perspective, email's been really big. So obviously emails coming to us and so on, we have our email provider. Mailing list software, so we use two for various different things. And that's really important because sending out, like we did Uber Eats vouchers for everyone who attended the event so that they could have lunch on the conference during the day. And so sending out, being able to mail merge and do that for people is really important. And you can't just do that on like Excel and Outlook on your own machine when you have 1,000 people. It doesn't scale. So we definitely had that. I think other ones, Excel, we have a lot of Excel spreadsheets in a OneDrive that we all access and edit, and many folders and lots of documentation with that. We also make use heavily of a thing called JotForm for capturing surveys and feedback from people, which is really great. I'm a really big fan of theirs because they give community discounts and they're really easy to use and they're quite cheap. And then another one we've been using a lot more is also Airtable, which is kind of like a hosted Excel, which has been really pleasurable to work with because you can sort of, if somebody filters or changes something on their side, it changes for everyone. So we could sit in like a Zoom call and be working collaboratively over data and working out things like who the speakers are for the event, track planning, things like that, which was really, really useful.
That's amazing. Great. So I'm going to go check out those tools myself. I just jotted them down here. Jos, is there any tools that have like saved your life recently or resources?
I haven't used Airtable recently, but it has been really, really useful in the past so far. And a colleague introduced it to me. It's amazing. I would for sure check that one out. It's actually a shame I've left it for so long, but it takes a little bit of a learning curve sometimes. And it takes some time to migrate things into it if you don't fully use Airtable all the time. But I couldn't agree more that Airtable is a great way to organize, to even visualize a lot of things, data visualization. So yes, I agree on that point. Trello has really helped me in the past few weeks to help me organize a lot of boards, a lot of different aspects we are working on, or different conference, because we organize multiple conferences and multiple meetups for multiple communities. It's handy to split those out. So I really found Trello useful also to work as a team towards updates, to as simple as maybe not as simple as, but website updates. You get a new speaker, it needs to be updated on the website, and not everything is in a CMS, so sometimes you need a developer to do it for you quick. All these kind of things, and to keep track of all the details. I think that is really useful with Trello. Email automation, really useful, whether that's MailChimp or Campaign Monitor or any other service that is available to you if you already have a database, of course. Right now, it's a combination of people we already had within our newsletters, and of course, new attendees from current events. Next to that, we use a ticketing platform, which of course at this stage is less important, but we still want to keep it to streamline things. We used Eventbrite for everything. The benefit about Eventbrite is that if you're running free events or you're selling free tickets, there are also no cost involved with the platform. So the attendee doesn't need to pay for it, you don't need to pay for it, and you have a lot of options to put your tooling within Eventbrite as well, such as your mail automation, part of your planning you can run over Eventbrite. They give you a lot of tips and tricks on how to run events. So I would look into that if that's something you're interested in. And Excel sheets, yeah. I think everybody I speak to, I still think, sometimes I think we should go to really, really professional software, but then literally every organizer and every event manager I speak to, like Excel sheets is like their heaven. So I'm like, yeah, why should I change a winning concept? Actually, I'm just going to stick to the Excel sheets because they work perfect for me. Yeah.
Definitely, and you can do whatever you want with it and change it and make it customized. Yeah,
and nobody judges you in your Excel sheet, so that's fine.
It has to look ugly. It's like the rule. You said that at one point that ticketing is like less important now. Is that because of the online forum, or?
Yes, well, especially for meetup events or for meetup community events, they've all been for free for the community. So right now we haven't used Eventbrite for that because we've sent them directly to YouTube to remove that barrier. What we discussed earlier, actually, and that's the main reason. Actually, we're not sure yet about future events. Maybe we do want to streamline people over a ticketing platform for our future online events, mainly so you can indeed inform them a little bit better, mail merge more factors into those systems instead of running it over your own email server, which is going to block you after a few emails. So yes, the main reason right now is because we didn't need it for the events we have run, but I would for sure not delete it or anything. I would for sure try to keep it for the future again.
Definitely. What's interesting to me is that in all of this, I'm realizing that while digital is proving to be an obstacle for a lot of people, like there's a lot of barriers, like you also have to remove a lot of those barriers for attendees, and then even just like testing tools. There's a bazillion and like 5 million articles telling you what to use, and I love how we're just going back to Excel anyway. But I wanted to know, like, because of the new state of things, and we mentioned earlier, we don't know what's going to change. What opportunities do you guys see like that we have as part of the tech community in all of like this, in events having to go remote? I don't know, Rob, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. I mean, there is massive amounts of opportunities, especially for South Africa. You know, for us to get speakers here from overseas is really difficult. You know, it's 15-hour flights from North America. It's expensive. The ability to now run events remotely and have speakers from all over the world interact and understand the South African context is really great, as well as to have attendees from all over. I also run a user group, the developer user group, and we've been doing our monthly meetings online since lockdown. And previously we'd do a Joburg event, and then we'll do a Cape Town event and a Pretoria event, and we'll have sort of 20 people at each. And now we're having one, and people from all over are joining, and people who've never been to them, like they're coming from Durban, they're coming from Bloemfontein, they come from all over, able to access, which expands the number of people. So your audience is bigger, the number of speakers you have is bigger, and those are great opportunities. There's also a lot of opportunities for just speakers to present content in a different way. I think, you know, I look at our events, we have a stage, and you're on the stage, and the lights are dark, and you have 500 people in front of you or 1,000 people in front of you. and you're doing a presentation. And now when you're on Zoom and you're presenting like this, it's far more intimate. It's far more personal. So you can really get into a different conversation and share a different story. You can also show a lot more detail. I think Clifford DeWitt, who spoke at DevConf, did it really well. We had 2 cameras set up and swap between them. And this obviously takes a bit of setup to do, but he had physical hardware and he could swap between and like really zoom in on the hardware and show you it. And it was really easy for him to set that up at home and practice and get it right. So I think that's going to bring in another level to what you can do at events and what sort of quality and content you can do that you were never able to do. I think Jos's example from earlier on, that Q&A stuff, you know, you can't really do great Q&A in a big hall. You got somebody running around with a microphone, it's really difficult. Now you can really, online, you can open up a whole bunch of new options for that.
Definitely, totally agree. And Jos, do you have any ideas on like where the opportunity lies?
Yeah, I think there are indeed multiple opportunities when it comes to attendees and companies. I think from attendee point of view, as Robert says, you have way more opportunities to go deeper into certain conversations and really offering that one-on-one experience, which you cannot really create in bigger venues, where you are trying to create it in other ways, of course, to have meeting areas or side tracks. We have always single tracks, but that's not the point right now. Or after parties, of course, that's what you don't have at this stage. So maybe now you can really contribute more on the in-depth tech experience, or maybe even the review style of video making, as where you weren't doing that before. So yeah, I agree on that. I think from a company perspective, as I said earlier, actually, yeah, our online presence wasn't that important for them earlier on, as we're right now. That's really an opportunity for them to advocate to a niche market via an online platform. So I think that's where there's a lot of growth opportunity still, and where a lot of companies are not focused on at this stage, but are really moving towards to see how they can expand that, because they don't have a way to reach that audience they would like to reach, of course, via your conferences usually. So I think there are a lot of advertisement possibilities, to be honest. And I think these opportunities will also stick around for afterwards still. I think we will see a lot of more digitalization of current conferences as well, because I think for a lot of people, this will be a great example how you can run a regular business online. So I think there will be way more opportunities offered after this to have the in-person experience, of course, which will never be replaced, because yeah, sometimes you want to go to a rock concert in person instead of from your living room. But I do believe that way more people now will also think about the other opportunities out there for as many people around the globe to attend these events, as where before maybe that wasn't a focus necessarily. So it was just left out. And I think from now on further, this will be integrated way wider all over the globe, to my opinion.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Like, and I absolutely love what you said. Like, I was just thinking about it, Rob, some more about like speakers, like the reach. If you have a speaker in America, you don't have to pay like 90K to get them to come to South Africa. You can get them to present, and if they want, they can do like a movie style presentation from their living room, which could, I mean, it might not be useful, but you know, like there is room to explore these new things. And I think for companies as well, there's like opportunity to sponsor in new ways. Like I also love the advertisement example. Like if you can give them that airtime, it's like, I mean, compared to a conference versus a TV ad would have been like hugely different for companies, like the return on investment there. So I think that's also like really, really interesting, and excited to see where things go after this, and how many more people keep using more online forums, which is great. I'm kind of curious to know if you guys have any questions for each other. I want to provide that option in case you've thought of anything that we haven't addressed. And Alex, feel free to chime in if you have any questions too. Any questions? I'll do a dance in the meantime.
I don't have any questions off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
No, not directly. It's more, Robert, you already, of course, ran now a full conference. I think you can agree that we'll never replace a one-on-one conference. But as you said, a lot of other opportunities come along. What did you love organizing this type of conference over an in-person? If you had to pick something, was there something that you preferred organizing it this way than you would usually do in a venue, for instance?
Oh, that's really good. The thing I really loved about the organizing on this, I don't know, actually. No, that's really tight. It's such a blur because we did everything in about like 3 weeks. It was just panic. Like it was just like every day we had
Troubleshooting.
daily calls, daily meetings and like troubleshooting and trying to figure things out, and trying to get enough info. And I think, I'm very blessed with my co-organizer Candice. And I've been doing this now for a couple of years, and we just got such a good relationship. And this, I think, was, it was so great. Like after the event, we were sending each other photos of us like drinking wine and just relaxing and just chilling out. So I mean, that was, I think for me, there are lots of aspects of like running the physical events that are just always tiresome, doing things like health and safety checks at venues and stuff like that. And I don't care. I really don't. But at the same time, I don't know if I would trade off any of them. This is just my personal thing, but I really I think that on the in-person events there's something special about them. And maybe the future is more just some sort of combination of these.
I must say, I'm quite surprised you didn't say that your favorite part was that you can attend your conference in your pajamas, because that's like what most people are saying at the moment. I never have attended as many sessions as this, because normally, at an event, I'm running around from room to room, because we run multi-track events, and so I'm running around from room to room, trying to see what's going on, making sure people are happy. I'll often go during talks to all the sponsors' tables to talk to them, thank them, and spend time with them, because then it's nice and quiet. And so this was the first time I watched most of the content, which was quite amazing. That was quite an experience. So that was a lot of fun to do. That's awesome. I'm quite interested to hear your answer to that though as well. Like, what's your favorite part about organizing virtual events?
Yes, so we were doing the meetups now. So to be honest, a big online event still yet to come, and that's what we're planning and thinking of execution at the moment. But my job has become way more I don't know how you say that in proper English. Way more untouchable, intangible. I don't know how you say it in proper English word, but
what's the Dutch word?
Sorry?
What is the Dutch word? Maybe we'll know.
Yeah, well, you cannot touch it, right? It's all like on paper. And I'm actually from a hospitality background. So since I'm 16, I'm used to like nurturing people and being one-on-one with them and planning events, of course, on paper, but then you're working towards that moment where you're executing something all together as a team and from A to Z. And then after that, you're going to think about how we're going to measure the success of this event, and then you're going to think about quantitative measurements and qualitative measurements. As we're now, these are almost like the first steps you're doing compared to what you did before, because before every little detail from venue to health and safety to checks to booking flights was a big part of my job. As we're now, that moment building your relationship with attendees and speakers is way more focused online and in pre-attended calls or in meetups building up to your bigger event. So yeah, it really gives me an opportunity to explore better, in a better way, different types of my job, which before seemed less, maybe not less relevant, but you didn't execute them as often. So now that whole importance of planning, execution, and measurement has really shifted to almost like 90% of your job. So I think that's something I really enjoy. And to be honest, usually you would wait to communicate with people in person until the event, as we're now, you're really trying to build up a relationship way earlier. So that's really nice. I speak actually way more often to people than I used to before, because before you were really invested in making sure everything was organized 150%, as we're now, you're like, yeah, okay, let's make sure I'm really in touch with the speaker, like way too often on forehand, maybe up to the point that they're done with you already before that time. But still, you really have that time to have one-on-one conversations like you have right now.
Definitely. And are these people like mainly speakers, or are they also sponsors and attendees, or?
Yeah, both. So it's speakers and sponsors, and from an attendee perspective, we always try to gather in-person feedback, which is most valuable to us, of course, when really we also send out a survey, which is usually perceived well. But as with every survey, it's always a challenge to get a high participant rate on it. As when you really try to engage with people one-on-one, you get way more feedback, and if people feel comfortable, you get also way more honest feedback, as when they feel like they can win something.
That's a very good point. Like, free stuff, answer my questions, or like, just tell me about your feelings. It's like got very different impacts, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I think that's like the end of the questions I had for today. If no one else has any other questions, then I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining us for this discussion. I think it's been really insightful and really good to know like how both of you have prepared for and dealt with these online experiences, and also are preparing to. I think that's very, very useful and going to be useful to others as well. Thank you guys so much for your time, especially after hours. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from you guys in the future.
So thank you so very much for organizing this. It was really valuable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.